Justice and Public Safety Committee meeting to order, 9:01 a.m., Monday, the 27th of August. Quorum is established. We will begin with the District Attorney Office agenda. First item is to approve minutes of prior committee meetings. Is there a motion? By Supervisor Simpson, second by Supervisor Wild. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. District Attorney, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Let's do this without glasses. Let's see what happens. So there are 3 grants that we have an ability to obtain. None of them require matching, and if you'd like, I can just go through one at a time. So the first one's called Aid to Prosecution. This is a recurring grant that I don't know how far back it goes, but the Division of Criminal Justice Services offers this grant to Warren County to supplement both salary and fringe, and this year's amount is $38,172. It's to be applied for serious felony prosecutions, and they like to have what's called vertical prosecution. So a prosecutor handles a file sort of from the beginning through to the end if there's a trial. So does anyone have any questions on that particular one? There's no match, it's just a grant that's added to supplement that type of case.
I'll move it.
Supervisor Bramer.
I was going to move it.
Oh, okay. No
She can move
further
it.
questions? Any discussion? Supervisor Wild?
Mr. Chairman, there's performance measures here. Are there any issues in terms of what we need to do to maintain this grant and make sure we follow through and do everything we need to?
We have occasional audits, so we actually had an audit. We're already receiving this grant previously, so we had an audit on the grant and no performance issues. They want to just basically make sure that we're prosecuting violent crimes and that vertical prosecution is occurring, which that's sort of the way our office has been structured over the years anyway, for the most part, so no issues.
Good, thanks.
And Jason, this is to supplement?
Yes, that's right. So it's a hope. The hope is that we can really put an emphasis on violent crimes and more serious felony cases.
Great. Good. Okay. No further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks.
The next grant is called the Legislative Initiatives Grant. Senator Little sent us a letter. This is not one that we've solicited. We received a letter that they're offering the county $10,000, and it's to support the Warren Washington County Drug Task Force. What we've done in the past is reach out to the different departments that are on that, so Sheriff's Office, different members of law enforcement, and see what kind of equipment they could use that would be helpful in their cases. Last year we got some safety equipment. This year there's always a need to update equipment, and so this money would go in equipment and supplies for the local law enforcement.
I'll move it.
Moved by Supervisor Garrity.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Bramer. Discussion. Hearing none. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries.
The last one is, people call it the CARP grant. It's Crimes Against Revenue Prosecution. I don't have the figure. They have not given us the amount of the grant award this year. Last year's, the award was up to $59,600. It really varies depending on how many CARP cases we have. A CARP case includes welfare fraud, unemployment fraud, tax fraud, basically frauds against government monies. And the concept of the grant is that it's a supplement. We have people, we're going to take a portion of their time and devote it to developing those cases, finding those cases, and trying to recover revenues that came from the taxpayers, essentially. We're one of, I believe, 24 counties that have received this grant, and we've now received an opportunity to get it again, or apply for it again this year. So we're seeking to apply. I don't know the figure as of today, but last year's was that $59,600 figure.
Okay. Motion to bring it to the floor. Supervisor Simpson. Second by Supervisor Driscoll. Discussion. Supervisor Bramer.
I want to say this in this committee too, because I brought it up to our Commissioner of Health and Human Services, that you know, I know that this is an important aspect of our government function. I also hope that we are working with people to help them ensure that they are not abusing the system where they are trying not to. And that we're not over-prosecuting people who are simply, you know, they're trying to scrape by and doing the best that they can. And I think that I don't want to, I'm not saying you are, Jason, being overly zealous in the prosecution of these crimes, but I just want to throw that out there that I think that we as the Board of Supervisors can try to be more sensitive to that issue as we're looking at these kinds of things.
Yep, let me answer that. So, one of the things that we're looking to do, we had an audit and had this discussion with our auditor internally. I said, look, you know, a lot of these people that we're dealing with are kind of really at the bottom edge of, there's a real variety of this type of fraud. It goes from very small to quite large. On the smaller end, what we're looking to do is working with Department of Social Services, see if we can set up a system where if repayment is made in a certain time frame, that case maybe can get diverted from prosecution. So that still counts as part of CARP work. So prosecutors can work on those files, look at them, and sort of filter them through. Generally, what we're looking to do in CARP cases is get repayment. That's usually our number one goal. So I don't know if that answers that question, but that's what we try to do.
Supervisor Hogan.
Can you tell us a little bit about what kind of volume this is?
Sure. It varies from year to year. I would say that in previous years that I was looking at, about 70% of the award has worked out. It's hard. It's not. For example, we have a case right now that's a very big fraud that might be certainly over $100,000 in fraud. It's investing it's one case, but the actual time that the CARP grant is going to be going towards that, because we have to track our hours that are worked on CARP cases. So that one case might end up being 50% of the CARP grant. And then some of the smaller cases, as far as volume goes, can not take a lot of time. So the smaller cases would be, and this is, I would say, not an uncommon thing. Someone lies on an application so that they can get benefits that they wouldn't otherwise be entitled to. What we do is, working with Department of Social Services and the Sheriff's Department, they will determine what would they have been entitled to had they been honest, and then the difference is the amount that the fraud. And so that's what we've been doing, really, before this year, quite some time. I don't know if that answers that. I don't know the number, because every year it's really more of an hours invested in each case. And sometimes cases can take an hour, and sometimes we have a case right now that there's 100 hours in easily. You know, it just depends on the scope of the particular fraud.
And Jason, who writes this grant for your department?
The grant writer in the office is Nancy Oven.
Okay.
She's, I think her title is, if you don't remember her title, Office Specialist. Yeah. And so she's writing all of these grants, and then with me, we work together on finishing them.
Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman. Jason, I worry about some of the disenchanted or just disenfranchised people in our county that you mentioned your goal is to get repayment if there's some fraud. But I worry about, and case in point, single mothers, they have children, they have to deal with the child care, this and that. They may not be able to repay a few $100s for a few years. How flexible are you to working with other alternative programs to help maybe break some of the generational poverty that we have, and saying that, you know, okay, instead of paying me back, get your GED. Instead of paying me back, go to SUNY Adirondack and get a degree, get educated, get a job. And I'd like to see some alternative programs like that, and I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Well, I think that sounds like a great idea, but it would not apply to this grant. So this grant's focus, and why the reason they're giving us the money, is they want a return on, they call it an ROI, return on their investment. And the idea being that fraud, so those programs are all there, and they already exist. And this isn't geared for any woman who's suffering and can't afford to feed her kids. This is only focused on people who are essentially lying and getting monies they're not entitled to. So it's not about entitlement, it's about taking monies that you're not entitled to. The way that we can handle those things, where you have someone who has committed fraud, and this is not uncommon, if they can't make a full payment, we have a probation department where we can extend payment out over 3 years on lower level issues, and then probation handles that collection of that money and getting it back to the Department of Social Services. So all those other ideas that you have are great ideas. They're not baked into the way this grant works. And really, I'm only referring to trying to get those monies so that we can handle those cases. Because the trouble is, if there is fraud going on inside of those systems, it's taking away from those who are rightfully entitled to the money, and it's boosting up the figures artificially, essentially. You know, if everyone commits 20% fraud within those systems, well now, when someone's going for money, they say, we need this much money, and it's really 20% higher than it ought to be against the money.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to condone the fraud, but I'm just looking for a way to say, how do we do something different other than now someone has a misdemeanor or a felony or something like that, which makes it even more difficult for them to possibly break that cycle, get a job and make that stuff happen. So it's just exploring. That's
Well,
all.
I think the deferral, the concept of deferral, so that's looking at, and this isn't put in place, but if this grant comes to fruition and we're able to put it together, we're going to be looking at cases before they ever go to prosecution. It's going to be under $1,000 fraud, where we can get a repayment plan with them and then get that case deferred so that there never is a criminal prosecution. So I think that would be the best answer I have.
Thanks, Jason.
Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you. I can maybe touch upon a couple of the questions that were raised. When an individual is receiving benefits, or household is receiving benefits, say they're getting $300 in food stamps, if they shouldn't be getting $300, they can make an adjustment rather than a repayment. Food stamps can go down to $200. So the family is still receiving benefits. When an individual completes an application, there's 2 signatures. The second signature is, I've answered these questions truthfully to the best of my abilities, and that's very important, that the social services staff person or whoever is completing that with them reminds them of that. If they forget to inform the county that they started a part-time job or their hours increased, they can go back and do that afterwards, and they just make the adjustment on that. That happens oftentimes with seniors. It happens oftentimes with individuals who don't understand that this part-time job, may have an impact on their case. Usually, it's a minor adjustment, and it's nothing that really has a direct impact on the family. Thanks.
Thank you, Supervisor. Any other discussion? Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Any other discussions come before the committee at this time? This time. Okay, thank you very much.
Actually, I do. If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman. And I'm sorry, guys. Jason, a couple of months ago, we talked about the jail and the fact that we had to push away some federal inmates because we had too much going on here in terms of our local jail situation. So I wonder if you could give us an update in terms of where we are addressing that, because my sense was there was a backlog in your team, or there was maybe a propensity to do weekend kind of arraignments or arrangements.
So that was a one-weekend event that I know the sheriff brought to your attention, and I believe that's already been alleviated. The numbers have started to come back to normal. It's when you're talking about criminal prosecution and arrests, obviously the DA's office doesn't control the arrests. Those are occurring every weekend. I got a call last night. So they're always generating, and they're going to vary over time. What has happened over the years, which I think is a good thing, is we've created alternatives to incarceration. They're great. Drug treatment court, I'm a huge proponent of that. I think it's very helpful. We have an opioid diversion now. We have a domestic violence court that's going on. Probation, interim probation. But within those systems, if someone doesn't show up for court, so we have a bench warrant, and then someone else commits a new crime while they're on one of those programs, they can get sanctioned. And when those sanctions all happen at once, which was the case that weekend, I think we had 5 sanctions with the drug treatment court. All those people on a Thursday were sent to jail for the weekend. Well, now you've added 5 to, as a percentage, that's a decent number. Then you have people serving weekend incarceration already to keep them working and not have them just serving a regular, uninterrupted sentence. And quickly you could have your numbers get boosted to create that situation. So other things that can happen, I know with our opioid diversion, we had 4 people out on bench warrants. If they get picked up, they're most likely going in until they're going back before the judge to address why were you, they're accused of bail jumping in that circumstance. So these kinds of things have an ebb and a flow to them. It depends on a lot of factors. And I just think that was as far as I'm concerned, one weekend where we had a large number that were being put in from our programs that are designed to keep people out of prison. But again, prison doesn't affect that. So people in drug treatment court normally are looking at a prison sentence and they're given a chance to avoid that. But in the interim, they're getting sanctioned whenever they commit a new offense, they start drinking again, using drugs again. To keep them out of prison, they're going in seeing Bud. They're going into Bud's facility in little short stints and then coming out. After this happened, I went and took a look at some of the drug court numbers, and I saw some individuals that had received 6 sanctions. So that means every time they get sanctioned, it's a person, it's not necessarily a new arrest, who's going back into the facility under court order. Normally, in the old days, they might have just gone to prison, so we wouldn't see them in the system, our local system. But here, while we're trying to get them back on their feet, get them sober, and get them so they're not committing crimes, there is that built-in portion of it, which is the sanction. So I think in the big picture, it's a really good thing, but I do think that internally it's going to affect the county, especially when we have just a group of things all coming together at once, which can happen.
Thank you. Thank you. Good. Thank you, Jason. Sure. Enjoy the day. Next up would be Public Defender.
Good morning. I only
Morning,
have
Marcy.
one issue for you today. It is our contract, which is our contract ends on September 30th of this year, and therefore I'm asking for an extension. I appreciate Julie Butler for having negotiated the contract for us, and so I'm just asking for a 3-year contract. And that's our only topic.
Okay, motion to bring it to the floor. Supervisor Bramer, second by Supervisor Wild. Any discussion? Supervisor Bramer.
Mark, any chance we can get this extended to the end of that year?
Julie, it's normally a 3-year contract, and so it's set up this way. I can talk to her about that, but I don't know if she'll be able to. My concern is if we don't get this approved for this next board meeting, I won't have services because this current contract ends on September 30th, and they're normally a 3-year contract.
And Supervisor Bramer, that question was brought up for the efficiency of getting all the contracts more on a calendar year rather than cycling.
But I will follow up with Julie, but I'm hoping at this point, could we have this approved, and then if she's able to extend it, I could ask her to do that.
We can do that at the board meeting too, if she can.
Okay, great.
If not, we'll pass this through, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, Supervisor Hogan.
Are these annual increases typical?
Yes, and I figured out the amount of annual increase. From year 1 to 2, it's $3.55. From year 2 to 3, it's $3.58. So I don't think that's a huge increase. So I think Julie did a great job. She also indicated in her email to me that our costs have gone down from per user than what it was originally. So I'm really happy.
Well, good. Marcy, I asked you this question about LexisNexis. Our different departments have it as well, but there's no combined LexisNexis.
Correct, because we handle parole and family court. The DA's office does not do those two things, and the county attorney's office does not do the extent that we do in that they do different things in family court. So we all don't use the exact same modules or sections. So that's why there's a difference between different groups.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcy. Enjoy the day. Next up is Sheriff. Under Sheriff Lamery.
Morning. On our action agenda, the first item is item A, is requesting permission to fill a vacancy for patrol officer number 41. We were recently notified by this officer that he's going to resign to take a position back with his former agency in a different capacity.
Okay, motion to bring that to the floor. Supervisor Simpson. Second by Supervisor Wild. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next.
Item B is request resolution to amend local law number 4 of 1996 with proposed local law number 6 of 2018. Essentially what the local law was in 1996, it referred to the title throughout the local law as deputy sheriffs. We have not had the title deputy sheriffs probably since the late 1990s. It was discovered by our civil service person, Trish Neninger, and she, in speaking with our county attorney, thought that the language should be updated to have the titles that we currently use now, which is patrol officers and correction officers, and the supervisory titles above those positions.
Moved by Supervisor Driscoll, seconded by Supervisor Garrity. Okay. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carries. Thank you.
Item C is request a resolution to extend the existing contract with New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services for the Mutual Link system that we currently have installed. It's a system that Homeland Security has paid for, they've maintained it, and they're just looking to extend their contract with us. Again, there's no cost to us.
No cost to us. Motion to bring it to the floor. Supervisor Wild, second by Supervisor Simpson. Discussion. And reading through this, the multi-link is basically what it says. It helps other agencies.
It's a interoperability platform that allows just agencies within the state to communicate with each other. Most importantly, what should be looked at is the fact that the state looks to see if you have that system in place when they get around to doing grant awards. So it would be a negative if we didn't have that in place.
I'm sure it comes in handy to have.
I don't believe we've ever actually used it, but we maintain it for the state.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item D is request a resolution to amend the county budget to reflect compensation for a loss. In this case, tractor trailer lost some stones off the back, and rather than the owner wanting to put it through his insurance carrier, he paid for the windshield on one of our patrol cars.
Okay. Motion to bring it to the floor. Supervisor Hogan, second by Supervisor Bramer. Discussion. None. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries.
Item E is request resolution to amend the county budget to reflect reimbursement for school resource officer services and equipment from the Hadley Luzerne Central School District in the amount of $24,560.50.
Motion to bring it to the floor. Supervisor Simpson, second by Supervisor Wild. Discussion. Okay. And this is, we'll be seeing more of these, will we?
This is for the tail end of the 17-18 school year. Hadley Luzerne is the only district that has stepped up to pay the additional cost for the equipment, uniforms, and stuff like that we supply.
Oh, well, thank them for us. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Next.
Item F is request resolution for a new contract with the Bolton Central School District for school resource officer services. They're requesting one officer for their campus.
Motion to bring it to the floor. Supervisor Simpson, second Supervisor Wild. Any discussion? Supervisor Bramer.
This is a new contract, and this is a retired officer?
Correct. Same as all the other districts.
Same as all the others, okay. And they're at the 30,000.
Correct.
That doesn't cover that similar amount that Luzerne just paid.
Luzerne
20.
Luzerne is a unique situation where the superintendent and his Board of Education agreed to pay costs that were above and beyond personal services.
Okay, I mean, I know I had asked previously that going forward, we would try to roll that into the contract, but I guess this is still one of those ones for this first, we're counting this the first year.
This is the first year for them, and as I'm sure you're aware, most of these school districts pass their budgets long before now.
Right.
And I do know of another school district where they actually passed the school officer positions in their budget, but they later determined they didn't want to move forward with it.
Which school is that?
That'd be the Warrensburg School District.
And this will be able to start up next week.
Absolutely.
Good. Supervisor Driscoll?
Is Saratoga County responsible for any of the Hadley Luzerne contract?
No. The school sits within the borders of Warren County.
Okay, go ahead.
Supervisor Bramer?
Were we able to get enough people trained in time for school next week?
Yes.
Whatever it is. We were, yes, okay.
Yes, Supervisor McDevitt?
We take the three elementary schools at once, a couple of middle school or high school, the three elementary schools.
Kensington, Big Cross, there's also,
So how are those involved in this program, those elementary schools?
they are not, the school district, I know Superintendent Jenkins is working with the city police and the mayor's office to come up with a program for within the city. Because we also have St. Mary's, and we have the other private elementary school that is escaping my mind. What is the name of that school?
Abraham.
So there's quite a bit of activity. And the Glen Falls School District, they have already been working on numerous safety plans. They have a lot already in place.
I think also the question of a broken school, which is, tuition is not the lowest at elementary school. For parents to send their children to that facility, the balance between a safety officer and expense becomes certainly, worthy discussion, I think, bring it out there.
Okay. Sheriff?
Just to remind everyone, a few months ago, Congresswoman Stefanik at the Luzerne School, that's where she chose to have a meeting. And Congress has passed a federal grant program for these situations. So all these schools that are paying for it can seek a grant for it if possible. So I don't know how much is in the grant, but they can apply for the grant. And I think we've let the schools know that, correct, Tom?
Yes, we have.
Okay. Which I'm sure they will be doing, and that will help them out. Good, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? of approving? Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries.
Item G, request a resolution for a new contract with Niemer Ford for proprietary dealer-only repairs to various Ford makes and models. Just to bring you up to speed, the county had a service provider agreement that was capped at $20,000. That was for the DPW, and we were able to piggyback off of it as the sheriff's office. We as the sheriff's office has probably eaten up the majority of that and have gone beyond that limit, and that's why we had to do an RFP so we could have another contract in place.
Above and beyond, and will you have to do this again next year?
Yes, this expires the end of September of next year.
Supervisor Simpson, second by Supervisor Wild. Any further discussion? Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Sean, as I was looking at the quote from Nehmer Ford, they have references here, New York State Police, South Coast Falls, Hudson Falls. Are we getting as good a deal as these guys are?
I can't honestly tell you where our deal stands compared to them. I can tell you that we've been utilizing Nehmer Ford for years because the bulk of our fleet is Ford patrol vehicles as well as vans, and we've not had any issues. There's many times that repairs cannot be made at places that we contract with, Warren Tire or Smith's Garage in Warrensburg, and they have to go back to the dealer.
Okay, thanks.
Any further discussion? Then all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries.
The last resolution request, item H, is request to transfer of funds between our codes to make some of our codes whole.
Motion to bring it to the floor. Supervisor Simpson, second by Supervisor Wild. And these are basically salary adjustments, correct?
For personal services.
Yeah. Point ones. Supervisor Bramer?
I was going to say, it looks like there's a lot of overtime, that we're moving to overtime. I don't know what means personal services. but
Salaries,
is there-
overtime salaries specifically, which is code 130.
Okay. Are we doing okay on staffing? I know that's the next topic for discussion.
I'm more than happy to talk about that when we get to it.
Okay.
I'm sure that's going to be a discussion.
Then I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Would you like to carry on some topics of discussion?
Absolutely. Topics for discussion, A and B, they're actually co-related. We currently have 5 vacancies for correction officer, 1 for correction sergeant. We're having still continue to have a turnover at the sheriff's office. Many people that come to work there. It might be fine if you're young and single and don't mind working a lot of hours. But for people that have children or have families, significant others, getting stuck for shifts and not being able to go to a baseball game, a concert, your child's birthday party, it gets old after a while, and we continue to see a turnover of employees downstairs. And with that said, our corrections overtime is currently at $453,000 when I ran this report late last week. We had budgeted $350 for this year, so as you can see, we're well beyond that.
Will be on. And thus the transfers. But some of the transfers, if you're running overtime because of vacancies, you're not using some of the regular. So it's
Correct,
just moving
and
it over.
when somebody gets hired and we have a technically they're a trainee, they have to go through training, they
Mhm.
can't be counted as part of the minimum staffing downstairs, which is set by the State Commission of Corrections.
How long is that training?
I believe it's 10 or 12 weeks that they have to do down there.
So there's a definite lag time there, isn't there?
There is.
Yeah.
There is.
Yeah. Supervisor Loeb?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for numbers interest, $453,000 is a lot of money, but you took that number against the amount of money it would cost us if we had all these 5 vacancies, or 6 vacancies filled. What would the difference be? Approximately. Within 20 and 30
I didn't bring my calculator with me this morning, but if you filled all 6 positions and you took an average salary with benefits of, say, $60,000, Mike, tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's pretty close.
So 6 times 6 would be $360,000.
So, and we deal with this all the time. So in the discussion of, the emotional discussion of overtime, then our overtime really is $90,000. I understand not the whole aspect of the actual cost of the taxpayers.
I suppose that's one way you could look at it. It's not just the vacancies per se that are driving the overtime cost. I know I brought this up and we had discussion about it last summer. It's the unfunded mandates that we're getting from the state. The one-on-one watches when somebody comes in and they're under the influence of alcohol, benzos, opioids. If you recall, the number of watches we had when I gave that report last year had doubled because of these mandates that we're under right now.
So in the long run, that could affect your full-time staffing numbers to fill some.
I don't see any of these mandates the state has passed along to us going away at this point in time.
Good. Supervisor Wild, then
Chairman,
the
thanks.
sheriff.
Sean, this appears to be an ongoing problem. It seems like it happens every month. We talk about the deficiencies that we have. Is there anything different we can do? Is it a salary-related thing that we can go out and get 6 or 7 new guys so we aren't having this quality of life issue?
In discussion with the Corrections Administration, they feel if the salaries were perhaps higher downstairs for a position of correction officer, that might alleviate some of the turnover. But I know of people that have left to go to other agencies because they feel it's easier to work there than it is for our agency.
So are you not a good boss? That was the first thing that popped in my head. That's not what I'm getting at, but really, what's the root problem? Why we can't get the staffing?
When you look at the salary disparity between a correction officer and what a patrol officer make, a lot of people that work downstairs might have the idea that they'd like to come on the road at some point in time and be a police officer. But there's a process to that. They have to take a civil service exam. They have to score in the top 3. They have to take a physical agility test. Again, they have to pass that, and then hope to still be in the top 3, and then get selected. I don't have a hard and fast answer how you keep positions from turning over as much as they are downstairs. I know that the union that represents corrections officers recently negotiated a new contract. The salaries are what they're set at. I believe, Supervisor Gary, correct me if I'm wrong, there was some sort of a bonus put in there for them.
We raised their salaries on purpose to keep them employed. They seem to be, we tried to help them out because we know it's a tough position. But, when people can go work for the state of New York now and choose the prison they want to be in, $10,000 more than what they're earning there right off the bat, they don't get shipped down the state. They can choose a correctional facility in the area. A lot of young people are going in this.
Sheriff?
Well, I have one question.
Yes, Supervisor Gary.
How current is our list? That used to be a problem, is getting the test given in a timely fashion.
That's actually an excellent question. This is not a situation that's unique to Warren County by any stretch of the imagination. Because the situation is like this across the state right now, they're offering the corrections officer test again this November to get another list.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Yeah, Mike, this is not just Warren County. You understand the community of corrections, whether it's state or whether it's county. There's high turnover rates, and Sean mentioned the main reasons why. Again, we've lost, I can't tell you how many, but a lot of our people go to state because it's the $8,000 or $10,000 increase. But the environment is still the same. The environment is what makes it tough. And I think as far as the overtime bill, what you're seeing also is that so much of the community of jails in New York State, and probably across the country, is pushed. It's pushed by people in there with mental health issues. More than half of the people in the jails and the prisons have mental health issues. The counties aren't as well equipped to deal with mental health issues. Therefore, they go on one-on-one, what we call one-on-ones. They see a social worker or a psychiatrist, and they said they want to commit suicide. So one of our people has to sit and watch that person. Just so you know, they sit in a chair like this. The jail is the inmates right there, and they have to sit there all day and watch this person until they're interviewed again by a psychiatrist or one of his, PAs to say, okay, you can take him off. That is overtime. That is all overtime. The big problem is, and this state needs to get a handle on dealing with their mental health people. We've got so many mental health people that should not be in jail. Are they committing crimes? Yes, they're committing crimes. But they're committing crimes because they're not all there. But the state wants the local counties to watch these people. And to me, it's unconscionable. We we do not have the equipment to watch these people. Can we sit and watch them? Yes, but it's costing the county taxpayers a lot of money to sit and watch this person and collect them off the one-on-one. So we're seeing the jails with more and more mental health people. That's where the problem is. Until the state gets control of it, the local jails are going to have that problem. You're going to have turnover problems because, quite frankly, imagine sitting and watching a person for 8 hours of your shift. You know, we try to expel them and give somebody else, but that's not easy to do. But we're expected to do it. And the only thing that we as a county jail can do, as far as someone who's acting up, someone who wants to climb up the rafters and jump head first, we've had that before. The only thing we can do is when they're not doing what they're told to do, we as corrections officers, all we can do is if they're battling, you can put them in a restraint chair. Do you know what a restraint chair is? That's all we can do. We put them in a restraint chair for 1 hour where they can't move, and then they behave themselves. That calms them down. But think about it. That's all we can do. We have no other method. They need to be in a state facility where they have the equipment to deal with these people. It's sad, but that's what it's come down to. We need to get a handle on the mental health issue in this country.
Yep. Administrator Moore?
Just to echo the sheriff's comments, it is a statewide phenomenon. I can tell you last year, the Westchester County Jail was $2 or $3 million over their overtime budget. There's 718 correction officers down there, so you do a guesstimate of how many are going to retire. You plan the new classes to try to keep the vacancies at a low level. We got the retirees right, but we didn't get the resignations right. We had, I would say 3 or 4 times more resignations last year than we thought we would. It's something that's going on everywhere, not just here.
Supervisor Wild and Supervisor Straub.
Sean, or Sheriff, how many corrections officers do we have all total? And the reason I'm asking is, what if we say we're going to compete with the state and we're going to give them the opportunity to make that 8,000 more a year as they stay over time?
There's the total number, including the administration, including the captain and the 2 lieutenants and the inspector, we have 88.
88.
So if you did bump their salary up, you probably would keep some from going to the state, and then they wouldn't have to move. But I don't know, I don't know how much that would affect. It could affect the outcome, but I can't answer that honestly.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
How can we
Supervisor Stroud and Supervisor Bramer, we need to move the discussion on. So.
Yes, have we done exit interviews with these people? We seem to have a large turnover, maybe it's common every place, but have we done exit interviews?
Well, the captain usually talks to the folks when they're leaving. Recently, the most reason why they're going is to the state or they're taking another job.
So we document the reasons why they left and the reasons they gave why they left?
The few some of them that were left because of disciplinary reasons will not be back to talk to us. But the captain has, yes.
Supervisor Bramer?
I know you want to move the discussion on, but I'm thinking not just from our staffing side, but from the front end, and the DA's not here anymore, but what can we do from that end as far as prosecuting people who have mental illnesses, or if they're detoxing and we have to do one-on-one, are there any other alternatives that a county jail can use rather than just sitting this person in a room with I don't know.
I'm constantly in contact with Jason. We have somebody.
Or Rob York, our mental health.
Yeah, we talked to Rob as well, and Jason does his darndest to get a hold of Marcy because she usually represents him. Hey, listen, come on, move this case along. This person needs help. They don't need to be in this jail. They need to be somewhere else. So they're very helpful with that, but it still takes a while.
Let Sean rebut here.
I know I discussed this last meeting when Rob York was here at a different committee meeting, but the day I came in, I believe it was last Tuesday, our population that day was 140 inmates. Of that 140 inmates, 67 of them were prescribed psychiatric drugs. I believe it was between 75 and 80 were currently receiving behavioral health treatments. And of that 140, I believe it was around 110 were being prescribed medications on a daily basis. As you can see, the bulk of the facility is full of people that have some sort of mental illness. Don't just think of it as a mental illness, though, because typically when you have a mental illness, you have a co-occurring addiction issue, whether it be alcohol, prescription medications, whatever. But that does exist.
Supervisor Garrity.
I was gonna say, in the worst, you can ship out to Marcy, right? Or can't you do that anymore?
There are a couple mental health sites we can ship people out to.
And what that costs for the taxpayers here, anyways, if you're gonna ship them out to state facility.
Supervisor Beatty?
Yeah, I was just, eating people at $8,000 extra a year, $704,000 additional cost, just FYI, so.
I didn't need a calculator.
Yeah, I know you didn't, Mike, but I think $750,000, close to $750,000, you know. Okay, so now your overtime goes down slightly, but as Sean said, most of the overtime is because we've got new state mandates. So really, the overtime, there was only a difference of $90,000 because of the state mandates. I don't see that $90,000 going away. So the end result is we would be full staff. I don't see the overtime shifting much at all, and we'd be. And I'm sure Mr. Thomas would love to spend $704,000. I'm not saying we shouldn't. I'm just saying that that's a huge number. You asked me $750,000. Frank's already got a lot of million in his back pocket, so he'd be more than willing to help us. I'm just throwing that out there.
Thank you. Chairman?
Yeah, Sean, I just wanted to make sure I was clear on this. The residency requirement is at the time of appointment, in other words, at the time of the appointment. But as I read this, it says a patrol officer, correction officer, that ceases to be a resident of New York State, Warren County, or a contiguous county. So for example, if you're appointed, you have to be a resident of Warren County. But should you move to contiguous county, Essex, Washington, for example, Saratoga as an example, that would be that.
Correct. That language has not changed at all.
Yeah, it would be curious to see that what percentage, what numbers of our total population will live in contiguous. We're having difficult time getting corrections officers. We might want to think about it.
Well, currently, when we issue the corrections exam, contiguous counties, if you live in a contiguous county, you're allowed to take the exam.
We've already done that.
We've expanded that pool of applicants, if you will.
You're allowed to take the exam, but how does that play with that item? How does that play with that How does that play with that?
They just have to live in the county or, as I said, a contiguous county once you're
They
appointed.
can live in contiguous county.
Or they change.
Yeah, they could live in Washington, Saratoga.
They can live in Saratoga County or Essex County or Washington County. Saratoga County.
So that would be applied to everyone in Washington.
Everyone can.
Okay. One more question, Supervisor
Mr.
Wise.
Chairman, just quickly, I was wondering if we could ask Jackie to get together with Sean and Bud to see if we can come up with some other creative way to help resolve our issue. The issue of not being able to fulfill these vacancies. I'm not proposing that we spend $700,000, but maybe there are some other creative
We're
ways.
fulfilling them, like, they come in here for 6 months, they find out they don't like it, and they either get another job or they go to the state. But we're filling them, it's just, it's not the constant job.
So, and then just, I'm sorry to go a little bit further, maybe we need to do a better job explaining what the job is like, before these guys jump in?
Listen, they're taken through Mike, they're
They
shown
got
what
it.
the job is,
Okay.
they're told the ethical part of it, yes, I want the job, and then when they get in there, well, not really.
Right.
So,
Okay, one last quick one, Supervisor Driscoll, then we need to get...
Regarding the definition of contiguous county, wouldn't it be advantageous to look at a certain number of miles as opposed to a contiguous person living in inlet or up in Essex County is going to take a lot longer to get down to Lake George than a person from Albany, Schenectady, or Troy. You're certainly going to have more individuals living in those non-contiguous counties to draw from as opposed to a person, who's living up in Essex County as a county chair or speculator in Hamilton County. Is that ever been considered?
I would defer to the county attorney or to civil service on that.
I don't know if we can do that. I can certainly look into it.
Okay. Thank you all for your discussion. Sean, anything else?
Nope.
Okay,
That's all.
privilege of the floor for criminal justice, public safety. Okay, hearing none, motion to adjourn, second, adjourned.
I was wondering, okay, so